Hi, my name is Mike Corbett, and I'm pleased to share with you my SOAS presentation, which is a review of the work I've done on my dissertation to date, which is a systematic review. And I'm exploring how corporations can develop management strategies to overcome barriers to social entrepreneurship. Now, a social entrepreneur is someone who works in a for-profit organization and develops a product, a service, or a management practice that addresses both a business opportunity and a societal need. And this will often be a need that the individual is personally familiar with and has a passion to address. So let me share with you some examples. An IBM manager who used his Peace Corps background to develop a mentoring program. An executive at eBay who launched the World of Good Fair Trade Marketplace. Individuals at Nokia and ABB who developed small footprint versions of their company's products to specifically address the needs of communities at the base of the economic pyramid. And a technology specialist at H&R Block who developed a suite of services specifically designed to address the economic health of low-income individuals and their families. Now, these are all great projects, and I'm sure we would applaud the individuals and the managers who supported it, but why does it matter at an organizational level? And the reason is that corporate social responsibility programs directly affect customer perception of both the company and of its products, which in turn impacts its long-term financial performance. However, both employees and other stakeholders indicate that their expectations are not consistently being met by these programs. For example, McKinsey did a study and found that 82% of employees felt that purpose was very important to them, but only 42% thought that their company's purpose statements really had an impact. On the other side, CSR programs have become increasingly standardized and in fact are now routinely audited, but they are still viewed as under-disclosing, that is, only talking about projects with a positive impact and over-reporting the size of that impact. The net result is that these programs can be seen as being more symbolic than substantive. And so the problem is that organizations that fail to engage their stakeholders effectively face long-term issues in terms of performance and business success. In terms of social entrepreneurship, the particular problem that's inhibiting this is a lack of awareness of social entrepreneurship as an opportunity. These projects often have a longer return on investment horizon, which makes it hard for them to get to the market. And they have conflicts between these projects and the more traditional established programs within the organization. So the purpose of my study is a systematic review, and I'm going to identify ways organizations can overcome these barriers and thereby enhance their stakeholder engagement and long-term performance. The review question, very specifically, is what management strategies can corporations develop to overcome barriers to SI adoption? And I used the CMO framework to develop this. In terms of my literature review, it really focused in two areas. One, corporate social responsibility, and the other, the social entrepreneur. In terms of CSR, it's important to keep in mind that there is still a classical view, which is that society is best served by the efficient use of resources, and that free markets are the best way to achieve this. This was the argument actually that Friedman made in 1970 in a famous New York Times op-ed piece. However, most people today would agree that businesses have a financial, legal, ethical, moral, and philanthropic obligation. And this developed from work that was done by Friedman and Reed and by Carroll and others. Today, it has gone a step further, and there are efforts to redefine the fundamental relationship between business and society, to see them as value co-creators, to address a triple bottom line, as Elkington put it, of people, planet, and profit, and that economies are circular, ecological, and integrated. In terms of social entrepreneurship, a lot of the research and a lot of the literature talks about their motivations, that they have to be aware of the problem, embedded where the problem is happening, and have a level of empathy and self-transcendence in terms of their motivations. Skills are critical, and there's organizations which are actively developing programs to support social entrepreneurs' skill development. And that social entrepreneurship is, in fact, an important way to drive a more strategic approach to corporate social responsibility by bringing in a more entrepreneurial and innovative component. The theoretical frameworks that I looked at fell into two basic areas. One, social entrepreneurial orientation, which derived from Miller's work on entrepreneurial orientation. And what this I did was identify three fundamental characteristics of entrepreneurial organizations: innovativeness, proactiveness, and risk-taking, and work on social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, that these are individuals who are driven by their passion, but they're restricted by the level of perceived and actual stress in pursuing their interests. And specifically within the corporate environment, Hemingway identified a four-quadrant relationship between the organization's social orientation behaviors and an individual employee's social predispositions. So combining these, the conceptual framework that I'm starting with is that the organizational characteristics of innovativeness, proactiveness, and risk-taking will be reflected in management strategies, which result in organizational structures and management practices for overcoming the barriers that I've talked about, and will lead to the organizational outcomes of social entrepreneurial success. I've used the evidence-based research framework to look at my review question, and I chose a systematic review specifically because it represents applied research which considers practical consequences and the real effects in developing facts and insights and guidance for management. The steps of the evidence-based research framework that I have followed are the development of the review question, which I've already shared with you, selection of evidence, and I'm looking for primary research on social entrepreneurship, qualitative and quantitative, published in peer-reviewed journals across all dates and available in English. I used the University of Maryland Global Campus online library to do my search, and my inclusion and exclusion was managed using a Prisma diagram, which I'll share with you in a couple of slides. Those articles that made it into my data corpus, I then extracted and appraised to make sure that they really were of the quality that I needed for the study. And that included both extracting the data and checking their methodological appropriateness and methodological quality. I then analyzed all of these articles using a coding process defined by Saldana and synthesized those into findings and recommendations. I've also engaged subject matter experts in the beginning as I began to shape my research question and do my literature review, and will re-engage them at the end when I begin to look in more detail at my recommendations. Here's my Prisma diagram. You see my search string there. That search resulted in 1,658 articles after I removed duplicates, non-English and non-journal papers, and I reviewed papers that were not relative to my topic specifically. I ended up with 61 eligible articles, and of those, there were a number that were not primary research, and there was some where the definition of social entrepreneurship being used by the researcher was not the same as what I'm using for this study. So I ended up with 36 articles in my data corpus. Those 36 articles are half qualitative and half quantitative. They cover a wide range of geographies and industries, and they are dominated by studies that were done of large national and multinational companies, which fits well with the environment that I'm trying to study. In terms of my quality appraisal, the process was really to take each article, identify its purpose, its design, sample size, extract the main findings, and to identify limitations in terms of its applicability as a base of data for the work that I'm doing. In terms of quality appraisal, I used both methodological appropriateness, which was based on Barron's in 2017, and I used methodological quality, which came from the mixed methods appraisal tool. So I'm looking at both at whether or not the source, the type of study was appropriate, and then how well the study was done to get a total score. Coding, I have 337 descriptive codes, which have developed into 29 codes, 7 categories, and 3 themes: investing, pursuing, and signaling. And going back to my conceptual framework, you can see that what I'm doing is I'm addressing management strategies as being investing, pursuing, and signaling. Investing drives organizational level and SI level investments. Pursuing involves aligning organizational goals and SI characteristics. And signaling is what executives do and say, and the organizational benefits that are promoted both inside and outside the organization. And these 3 factors, investing, pursuing, and signaling, all work together to create the social entrepreneurial success, which is what I'm looking for. So thank you very much. here's a quick run through of the articles that I used for this presentation. And I really appreciate you listening to my presentation and look forward to comments and feedback. Thank you.